This is question number 8, practice homework 1 for session 2. So we're provided with a bunch of numbers from the income statement, sales, costs, addition to retained earnings, dividends paid, interest expense, tax rate. So this question is asking us to calculate the depreciation expense. We need to pay attention to the rounding requirement. Do not round intermediate calculations. So actually, to meet this rounding requirement, I found it's better to use Excel for the calculation. Of course, you can still use the calculator to get the same answer, but Excel can automatically meet this requirement, not rounding the intermediate calculations. And this question is also examining our familiarity with the fundamental structure of an income statement. By that, I mean you need to be very familiar with the position of the items. So an income statement should start from sales and deduct all sorts of expenses, and then ultimately we should arrive at the net income. And then net income can go into two channels, right? One is the paid out to the shareholders in the form of dividends, and the remaining is retained inside the firm in the form of the addition to retained earnings. So once that we understand this basic structure, we can use that knowledge to back out the depreciation expense. So let me first put all these numbers into a income statement. As we said, we start from the sales. So let me just put it over here. Sales is 66,000. So then we have costs, all sorts of costs. I think it might just be easier to copy the number rather than me typing it. And then we have the next one actually is the depreciation expense. Depreciation expense. And this question obviously is right now we don't know this number, right? But we know the structure of the income statement. The next item after the depreciation expense is the interest expense, right? And then once we deduct the interest expense is given to be 4,600. So once we deduct the interest expense, we are at EBT, right? Earnings before taxes. So this is basically sales minus costs and minus the depreciation and minus the interest expense. And because here I don't have the depreciation number, so this number is basically by assuming the depreciation is 0, which is obviously not correct. But here I just want to put the formula or the relation between EBT and the other items on the income statement. So taxes will be based on the EBT and then multiply by the tax rate, right? Tax rate is 22%. So once we know the EBT, and we can calculate the taxes. And then once we deduct taxes from EBT, we get to the net income, right? So this is EBT minus taxes. And then, as we said, net income can go into two ultimate channels. One is the dividend, right? A part of it is paid out of the firm to the shareholders in the form of dividend, and dividend paid is 2,040, and hence the remaining is actually is called addition to retained earnings, right? This is called addition to retained earnings. So it's also given to be 5,900. So I guess we have put all the numbers into this income statement. And since net income should be the sum of dividend and addition to retained earnings, so we can actually, we know that net income should be the sum of these two, right? Dividend and addition to retained earnings. But right now, of course, this number, as we said, because the EBT is not correct and taxes hence are not correct, so net income is also not correct. But this is the correct number for the net income. So what I can do is, now I have at least two ways to solve out the depreciation expense. So you can, if you put any number there, you can see this will automatically change because I have put the right relation between all these items. So obviously this number is not the correct answer, right? But I can, as I said, I can use at least two ways to back out this depreciation expense. One is simply to use the algebra, because I know that net income is 7940, right? 7940. So if I write down this in my note or in your scratch paper, you can just so net income is calculated to be again, copy that number, right? 7940. And since I know that taxes is 22% of the EBT, so, and I know that EBT minus taxes equals net income, right, based on the income statement. And taxes is further equal to 22% times earnings before taxes or taxable income. So from this, you can see this basically gives me, because both has this EBT here, so I can combine the terms. This is 1 times that, right? 1 times that minus 22% times that. So this will give me 1 minus 22% and then times EBT. And then this gives me the net income with 7,940. So from this I can solve out. So this gives me obviously 78% and then times EBT. That equals 7,940. Hence EBT is simply 7,940 divided by 78%. I don't want to do this calculation now because I want to follow the rounding requirement strictly. Do not round intermediate calculations. If I calculate this number now, I have to round. So I just leave this expression at this. And the point I want to make here is that we have basically figured out the EBT. And then because EBT is further equal to sales minus cost minus depreciation expense minus interest expense. Except for the depreciation expense, all other numbers are provided by the setup. So we can figure out the depreciation expense. So let me do that. EBT is further equal to sales minus cost minus depreciation expense, right? Just use DP to denote depreciation, and then minus interest, right? Interest. So this is EBT. And sales is provided, right? Sales is given to be this number. Cost is also given, and depreciation we need to figure out. And interest expense is given 4,600. So the only unknown here is depreciation expense, and this is a number, so we can back out this depreciation expense. And how do we do that? Just move this depreciation expense to the other side. So, and then it changes sign, right? So DP equals sales minus costs minus interest expense. And then once I change this DP to the other side, and I need to move this to the other side as well, this number. So this gives me 7,940 divided by 78%. So now I can just put the number, right? Just input the number. Sales is simply 66,000, and costs are simply 31,100, right? And interest expense is simply 4,600, and then finally 7,940 divided by 78%. So now I can put the number into a calculator or Excel and get the final number. So let me use Excel. I just put the number in. That equals, basically I can just type the number here, minus the cost, and then minus the interest expense, and then finally minus the 79.40, and then divided by 78%. And this gives me, this basically is the depreciation expense. And you can try this, actually, you can try to put this number in, and then you can see this will give you the same number. The net income will equal to the correct amount. Right? Once I put this number in, you see that net income will equal to this. So this means that this is the correct answer. So this is the one way to figure out the answer, to back out the depreciation expense. But that's not the only way. The second way actually is to use Excel directly to figure out the answer. So before I do that, let me just randomly type any number for the depreciation expense. Obviously, you can see that because we know the correct amount for net income right now, if I depreciation expense is this random number, this net income will be a negative number, which is not equal to the correct amount. But I can set this net income to be equal to the correct amount by choosing the depreciation expense. Excel gives us a very convenient way to back out this number. It is available in the Data tab and What If analysis and the goal-seek function. So if you haven't used this What If analysis before, probably you need to install it by click on File and then More and then Options, and then you can just choose add-ins here and choose the, I guess, the solver add-in. That's right, because I have already installed this, but if you haven't installed it, it should appear as inactive application add-ins, so you need to install that. And also the probability analysis toolpack. So getting back to what if analysis and the goal seek. So now I want to, my goal seek is that we have a goal. We can set the goal to be equal to a certain value by changing a variable. And that's similar to solving a one unknown equation, right? Similar to what we did using algebra. So my goal here is to set the cell, which is exactly this C8, that's the net income, to be equal to, here I need to type. I cannot choose a cell, like click on the cell, Excel, you can see that Excel doesn't accept that. So I need to type the value directly. which is 7,940. So I want to set cell C8 to be equal to 7,940, the correct amount for the net income, by changing cell depreciation expense. And if I click on OK, you can see that this will also give me the correct amount, right? 2120.51. So now I can put this number back to my Connect.